Hey, it's Chief Bonnie with Board Games, and this is my review of One Small Step from Academy Games. Woo, woo. So, worker placement in a race to the moon between the Russians and the United States. So that is what's going on within the game. What's going on with the shirt is it's my Star Wars shirt, but it has like a star field on it. So I do not need a lint roller, if that's what you were thinking. But let's go in over top and actually take a look at the board and walk through some gameplay. Then I'll come back with my final thoughts. I love the cover. That little blue marble just floating in that black abyss. So we'll come down over the board, but what you'll see right here are your helper aids or helper cards for both the beginning and the advanced. I guess they're called summary cards. You're going to need those. So I'll talk about those more in a little bit. They will help you explain this area here, which is where a lot of your worker placement, I would say a majority of your worker placement is going to be. The other worker placement will be going on in regards to these cards, which you will be drawing. Not drawing really, but you'll draw from that pile of the green stars to lay here, and that will also be a portion of your worker placement activity going on. So you're going to see a time track way up here. Sorry, see my fingers just put it out. So that little time track where the red and blue cubes are, maybe I'll take a photo and put it in a little closer. Off to the left, you have some satellite tiles. There's 2 stacks of them. They're a little big. I tried to stack them all in one when I first played, and they were toppling all the time. A very similar stack of media tokens there. You have some hazard cards here, which are the big take that element of the game. We'll talk more about that. And you have advancements, which are these white cards at the top bordered by yellow. You only use those in the advanced version, but after you play your first game, you will want to use everything in the advanced, and I will explain more of that in a little bit. You can see this path coming around the moon here. It's really more of, well, that's the timer, and those little Starship crew tokens will give you bonuses which you can get awarded for doing different things in the game. They're usually giving you extra victory points. The victory point track wraps around this top corner here. And I don't think I'm in tight enough, but that one right there is revealed to you as a victory point 7. They'll also give you, when you get these, you will get the chance to draw hazard cards and advancement cards as well. Let me come down a little bit here and we'll zoom in a second. But these cards here are again drawn off that green star deck. So with these green ones, you can see number 1, of course, the color. 2 is this little, you can see the periscope in the corner. So crew ones will have this astronaut helmet, and of course, they're blue. They will work very almost identical for the worker placement phase, which is this area here, but then they will stage much differently. The green ones will come into your hand once you get them. The blue ones will be down on the table and will allow you to, do certain things that the icons on them tell you can do, and I will get to those in a bit. All right, I wanted to show your command board a little bit. And I've set some stuff up here already, and we'll go in and you'll see how it works in a little bit. But up here, you will have, these are the areas where you will collect your tokens. And you will have agency, and you'll have 3 tokens from there, and you'll have satellite, 3 tokens from there. In this case, I've got a round booster. Whoops, let me get my finger out of there. I have a round booster, they're red, and I have a square booster. The round ones are temporary. When you use them to do a thing, they go away, back to the pool. When you have a square black one, you flip them. They're exhausted, but at the end of that turn, they'll flip back over. So you know you're going to have them, and you'll be accumulating temporary and permanent ones throughout the game, and you'll need a lot more space than what I have here. This is the crew area. You have your workers. These are 2 engineers. They have like goggles on or some kind of protective eyewear and paper. The administrators have a headset and I think a collared shirt. This is the area where you will be putting your missions, whether they're satellite missions or crew missions. The satellite ones, there's 2 to default. They're usually a little easier, especially early on, not always. They will be shifting over, and then you've got to achieve the icons that are down here in order to make that launch successful. Now, that happens to be a booster, and you can see I have boosters. So if nothing changed, I would be able to make this launch happen, but I will explain launches in a little bit. I've taken a personnel card, a crew card, and I've placed it where it would sit on the board if I had collected this off of the main board on some future turn. You can have up to 3 of them sit here, and they allow you to do extra things during it's a personnel card during the personnel phase. Over here is a little tiny advancement card. You can also buy these. They sit off and spool out this way, and they can do, again, all number of things. This sabotage card happens to allow me to get a hazard card, which my wife hates, and to put it on her missions, which cause a flipping of that hazard card when she launches and extra things she has to do. She hates that. That's how this area will work. You've got your turn sequence. You'll be putting your workers on the board from this area. Your launching of missions. You can have multiple cards sitting in these places, so it's not always just one. It could be 3 are there and only one's there. And I've got 2 missions that are going to launch this phase. But let's just walk through turn order real quick. All right, I'm going to breeze through a few things because it's not really the heart of the game, but the countdown is just advancing the mission cards. These mission cards that are down here, they're sitting in this area and they would slide down. So whatever's on T-1 is going to launch, and whatever's on T-2 is going over to T-1. And that just is the shift of your cards, and now you know what's going to be launching. Replenish is the area actually right up. Hold on 1 second and I'll show you. It's these cards right here. Now I've grabbed Yuri just so I could show you how those personnel cards, normally they would be there, but this is the first round, so all the cards are there, no need to replenish. In future rounds, some of these will have had workers put on them and they would have been stripped away. So we would get rid of anything that wasn't picked. The ones not picked would go back underneath the stack and we would bring out 4 new ones. That's simply the replenish phase. In the draw 2 cards phase, you'll do this in a kind of a different sort of way. You first draw a card based on the administrator. The administrator can draw either 1 satellite card or 1 crew card from your country's deck. And you'll see the American flag on here. The Russians have theirs. So the crew cards usually have a lot more going on, not always, but they get you a lot more points. So one of the cards you draw will be either a satellite or, again, a crew. And then you will go to the engineer phase, which is you will draw, again, 1 card total. So you've drawn 1 already as the administrator. And for the engineer, you could draw a satellite. Again, these will be placed down in your missions, T-2, T-1, or you could draw a crew card from your country, or you could draw one of the cards with the green cards with the star on it. Those are cards, if they're green, they go to your hand, and if they're blue, they play down into your personnel as your astronaut and allow you to do extra things. So again, when you're drawing these 2 cards, it's broken out because if you have a 4-player game, one person's doing all the engineer stuff and the other person's doing the administrator stuff, meaning they're running those little wood meeples too. I'm going to talk as if we're just doing a 2-player game. I think that's how I will always play this. So step 4 is the worker placement. So what you do, let me first zoom in on this area over here, but I'm going to see if I can get the cards in as well. All right, for the cards, you can just see we have these areas down here where these little engineers or administrators, engineer and administrator, are placed. You're ignoring everything else on the card other than the shape of the man here. So if I wanted to get this action, which is I would be able to pick a red temporary resource of my choice. So either a booster, navigation, or sensor. I would put my worker on here, and I'm going to immediately take that resource and put it on my control board. The other thing, by putting my engineer on this card, I will be taking this card into my hand. I will show that portion of this when we get to a later stage in the game. Right now, we're just doing this worker placement phase. I put my engineer on it. It's a red die, question mark, and it's a circle, which means a temporary resource. I can pick any temporary resource that I want from the red section. The other player would go, they may take and put, maybe they want their administrator here, they want to pick up Yuri, and Yuri would immediately get them. Again, this is just the resource portion, the worker placement portion. They would go up 1 on the media track, and they would get this blue agency choice, but there's 2 of them. So this blue die has 2 resources on it anyway, but they would get to pick 2 temporary resources and put it on their control board. Now again, we could be picking off of the Earth space, but I'm going to come up and show that separately. Right now I'm just showing the cards. So if it came back to me, maybe I want to do the PR tour. This is the administrator. I do still have an engineer, so I could come do the booster test if I wanted, but I want to counter some of that media attention that Yuri got. So I put my American administrator here. I would go up 1 on the media track, and I too would get 2 temporary agency resources. Maybe I need more money, or maybe I need some more personnel or material. And that is as simple as that goes. You place it and you immediately grab that resource. You don't wait. I'm so used to placing all of them and then triggering them, but here when you place it, you grab the resource, and then there's just a cleanup phase. Now again, I'm parsing my workers between these cards and all the worker areas that are on the Earth. So I'm going to scroll up and show you the Earth area, and there's a lot of stuff going on here. So what this means is these cards are variable, and you've always got different things coming out, and by placing your worker here, these green cards will go into your hand, and you'll be able to play them for these things, which I will explain in the future. And of course, I've already showed you the blue ones go down on your control board and allow you to do things that I'll show you again in a little bit further as we go here. Let me move up to Earth. All right, now this is going to be the nuts and bolts of the worker placement strategy. So the first thing I'll point out is the infinity sign, and that means that you could have as many workers in this area as you wanted. Now it's not very efficient because you're simply going to roll the die, agency die, and get the resources listed. But that is one choice. So you know you have an outlet if you want that. So let's go by these areas one at a time. And the first thing I will explain to you, and we'll start with something close, is you can see it's almost like a file folder. And in the bottom, you will always see an administrator. So administrator, 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 same and same. And in the upper left, you will have an engineer, 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 same, same, same. So if an engineer comes in and takes the spot, it closes it off for the administrator. Now the area that the engineer will do then is whatever is symbolized in this location, whatever the location may be. Now I'm going to walk through some of those, but you've got all the icons and stuff. But I want to just cover that if red, USSR, comes in and puts their engineer here, they've taken over this space, and blue cannot come in and take it. Now, There are some cards and some different things that may allow you to break this rule, but in general, this whole area is now controlled by the engineer. The administrator action will not be able to be done. Even the other red player, or the red player, could not come in and place a second piece on there. So when an engineer or an administrator comes in, it locks down that area, and then you simply follow what is listed. Now there's a very cool thing that is not in place in the basic rules, and this is one of the reasons you want to play with the advanced rules. And that is these little subsections. There's 4 of them. So lower right, lower left, upper right. And again, there's icons here that will tell you what they do, but they basically sweeten the pot for what this action is. So if, let's just say this had been taken and turned on, it's now +1 resource of your choice. So if you take this action, which is now much sweeter because now no matter which one of these you do, you're going to get +1 resource of your choice. If this part was gone, the satellite had been taken, and there's ways you do this with the playing of cards generally, or actions you'll take, but now it would be a plus. You can discard a card from your hand, one of the green cards, and you can take a temporary resource of your choice. So it could be the red ones, it could be the crew or the satellites or the agency. And these little, I feel it's almost like a toggle switch that you can toggle on. And they all start toggled off. And then what happens is as they get toggled on, areas become a lot more attractive and they'll be fought over. And the order in which you put your little worker placement meeples down is based on the media track, which is over there. And it means you're now going to have that media race going as well. And each one of these phases, that media race can vacillate. So the worker placement here is actually a little more limited than I'm kind of used to in my worker placement, because you only have 4 of your guys, 2 engineers and 2 administrators. But you can see some of the deliciousness, and I did say deliciousness, of the worker placement phase here, is that you have tough decisions to make based on these different triggering areas, and also including that are the cards that are in play. So you get this tug of war where you want to grab this and maybe that's been turned on, but you really wanted to pick up Yuri and bring him in to your board because he's going to give you this perpetual thing that's going to happen every single turn. And maybe you can hold off and get this later, but oops, your opponent, the United States, came in and seized it. And again, that's just worker placement in general. So it can feel a little limited because you only have 4 of your guys, but the options are pretty limited as well. And, not massively limited, but enough to keep everything interesting and tight. And I'm going to bring this on here and set it down. Well, maybe I'll lean it up. It looks shaded. Whoops. Hello. How did you get on there, engineer? This is a breakdown. So you have simple windows that will explain what the action is. And boy, do you need it, because these icons, for me, can get confusing. But this card deconfuses. Yeah, I said deconfuses. And then you can see, if you turn on this little toggle, boom, you get to do this. If you turn on this one, you get to do this. And this card allows you to study what you want to do without looking at these and kind of being like, what is that? And then now your opponent knows you're looking at doing that. And then the back of the rule book has explanations of the icons, but boy, is this handy. So yes, it looks like a spreadsheet, but it explains this exactly the way you need to. So wonderful choice with these. And I think you get an idea of the worker placement. very, very true to the theme. This, of course, in conjunction with the cards and the randomness that the cards give, is the meat and potatoes of this game, other than achieving the launch. So you're doing your worker placement in order to achieve your launch. So let's move on out of worker placement to the next phase. All right, along with Yuri, we can't just have a Russian there. I went and grabbed Alan Shepard. So they would not be on this track anymore. Let me get some of these out of the way, because what they would be is next to your personnel board, just like this. Now, a little bit of a break, because this would be the Russian board, but the Russian board can have Alan Shepard as one of their personnel. So maybe breaks the theme a little bit, but you can see why. You're going to be drawing in personnel and they will be off to your side. There's a little bit of history about them down here, which is great. You at this point, once you've got them, so let's assume that you either drew that card and it came in and you had to put it down, or you got it in the worker placement phase. So once you've collected that card, you're no longer doing anything with this worker placement phase here. That's strictly when you put your workers on it. That essentially does not exist anymore, and you're simply down to this. It's going to cost you one of the personnel tokens from your agency part of your board, whether it's a temporary or whether it is one of the persistent ones. All right, so you can flip that over. And during the personnel phase, this is all totally optional. You don't have to do these at all if you don't want to. But by doing that, I can move up. This would be a choice of three things. I can move up one on the media. I could draw one of these star cards. I'm forgetting the name of it off the top of my head. Or I could discard a card that is in my hand. I could get rid of a card. If I were to use that same personnel token for Yuri Gagarin, I could simply go up one on the media, or I could grab a temporary booster. So some of these guys will be better at certain things than other people. You can have a max of 3 of these cards, but if I were to draw in a 4th personnel, I could place it, but then I'd have to get rid of one of the other ones I have. Ideally, really, you end up with 3 personnel over here that give you extra options to pull off what feels like worker placement actions, but you're using your agency personnel resources in order to pull those off in this case. And it's on a different phase of your turn. So that is the personnel phase, and it just allows you to bring in some history and trigger off a few more things, which gives you these additional layers. All right, for the phase 6, you're going to have, it's called play cards. Now I'm setting these down. Don't mistake this as these are what I'm bidding on or anything. I'm just using the same play area. Now these would be in your hand. You would be holding on to them, but I want them to obviously be visible. So you can play up to 2 cards from your hand. Again, assume these are in my hand, and you just have to pay the cost for them. Now this is a little bit different because you'll see there's this like bar, this arrow that's pointing down. In each of these cases, it's pointing down and it's showing you a good in red. Material, money, and material. They could have been personnel, sometimes they'll be boosters, they'll be whatever. In this case, I would have to have that resource on my player board off to the side. I pay it, and I would get to draw in a temporary circle booster icon, and I would get a victory point on this chart right here. So if I played this card, I would get it. Again, we would totally not, or we would ignore this worker placement. It has nothing to do with it. It's simply pay this, get that resource, and get a victory point. If I did this and paid the money for the PR tour, I would have a choice. I could either go with a sensor / or a boost, or that is navigation. So I could either grab a sensor or a navigation temporary token, and then I would get a victory point. And you can see booster, and again, navigation. Now, as your turns go, sometimes you'll get some of these that do almost some obscure things that are hard to, I'll have to look them up sometimes. But the back of the rule book explains what those are. There's even a compendium of some cards that have some more interesting looking icons. Sometimes it is, take a temporary resource, turn it in, and get a permanent resource. So the cards are just one more currency that you're playing down generally to get, boosters or upgrades or get victory points. And that is the Phase 6 play cards. Let me get these off, and I'm going to bring on a launch. So this would have been here. I would have had another mission sitting here T-1, so that'll be the thing I'm going to be going for in the next turn. It will slide over at the beginning of our next turn. But my goal is this altitude record. This tells you it's a satellite mission, so it's not a crew mission. Those are generally harder. And this will tell me for a minor success that I need to have a booster. Let's pretend I have a booster sitting right up here. And when it comes to Phase 7 launch, I have to pay a booster. I have a booster to pay. I put that back into supply, and I've achieved a minor success. The minor success moves me up 1 on the media track. It gives me a satellite token. That satellite token is drawn and then just gives me whatever reward is on here. So this one in particular, I had it upside down. This will give me, let me set it down, it's out of focus. That will give me 2 media. I'll bump up 2 media. And I will also get a life support token, which we call heart token. So I'll get a life support token, and you'll get that immediately. Now, if I'd gotten a media token, which is a little bit odd, you keep going up the media track, and then if you are in a certain area, which is 5, 6, 7, or 8, you can voluntarily move back 5, and then you can draw a media token, which has the same shape but the media symbol. You can choose when you want to play this, and it basically allows you, this would give me a personnel token from the agency pile, and if I was tied with someone in the media race, I could flip that because the token on top is the one that's actually ahead in a tie. Again, I'm not going to go over all the icons. You would get confused quickly. If you make a minor success, you will not be penalized. This one has no penalty if you fail. This X means if I hadn't had that booster, I would have failed. This has no penalty. Some of the higher crew missions or some of the satellite missions will have penalties, like you'll go down in media or there's bad things that can happen to you. If you achieve the minor success, you won't get the negative penalty, you get the bonus. If you achieve the minor, you can go on and try to achieve a major success. So if I'd also had a navigation token, I don't, but if I did, I could have played it, turned it in, and I would have got 2 more media, and I would have been able to pick a red resource of my choice. So you don't need the major success, but you're usually wanting it for the rewards. You definitely want to be able to pass your minor success, because if you don't, there could be a penalty. Now, hazard cards will come up based on several different factors in the game. I'm not going to go into all of them right now, but there's even advancement cards, sabotage, which if I had it, I could play it onto my opponent's launch mission or any mission, and it would just sit there. So let's pretend I'd had a hazard card by my opponent played on this mission. When I go to launch, I haven't been able to look at this. I know I have to have a booster for a minor success, and I have to have a navigation token for a major success as well. This hazard says that this is a satellite mission. Because of that, it's not a crew mission, it's a satellite. This says I have to have a money token as well. If I did not have a money token, it would mean I failed this mission. I would not get any of the victory points or any of these bonuses. If I had the money, not only would I get these, I would also get a victory point. Oftentimes, you will play these hazard cards on yourself. You cannot look at them before you play them on yourself. You got to play them blindly. Now, if I say, hey, Jimmy, I'm playing this on you, I can take a look at it and go, ooh, he doesn't have a lot of money. Let me throw it over there on his T-1 card. And then in a future turn, phase one, that'll shift over to launch. He doesn't know what I've added on to him there. And it gives a lot of tension when you go to launch and you flip it and you hope you have the necessary resources, especially in some of the bigger missions, because you'll have a whole lot of different things. And on top of it, I would need more money, because this is called increased cost. Cost basically overran for my airspeed record. That is a general turn and a general walk around the board. There's some stuff I left out, but let's go out for final thoughts. All right, we're back in. So I love worker placement. It's my favorite Euro style mechanic, and my wife loves the race to the moon. So this, I was hoping, would be a great couples game for us. Let me put this up a little bit, and it was. It is. We played it twice, and she wants to play it again and continue exploring the space. So first, some quick things we both liked a lot. The idea that you have your, I think they're called crew cards that are particular to the Russians or the Americans. Great both thematically and historically. Speaking of historically, we both love the historical touch, and Academy Games, of course, does this great anyway, but the text that kind of gives you more of that historical background. So you're playing the card and then you see, oh, okay, Luna 2. That was what the Russians crashed into the moon. Ah, great. I mean, I know about Sputnik, but even when I did the unboxing, I was looking at Luna 2 and I was like, oh, that's Sputnik. And then I'm like, no, that's Luna 2. Well, now I even know what they did with Luna 2. So I love that fact. So did my wife. A slight negative was the icons or the iconography or the symbols that were used on the cards. You've seen all that, and on the little tokens that your resources that you're gathering with your workers. They seemed a little too abstract. Now, I know you want to keep them simple and understood, but especially when we were first playing, it was like, hey, give me a fire. Well, that's a booster. Now, in the second game, we tried to use the terms. If I had a request, it would be that the tokens were a little bigger, because I know it's hard to get print on there, but if you could get them just a little bigger and actually printed on there, like life support, I believe is what the heart is called. Well, it's a heart with a little beating, like a monitor. But we would just say, give me a heart. Well, in the second game, I said, hey, for thematic purposes, let's try to call them by their name. So I need some tokens, temporary token for life support, just showing that I'm going to be stronger in that area, or my engineers or my administrators are working on that. So I would have preferred the name on there as well. I know that can be difficult. This is just me throwing out this is what we would have liked. It was a little abstract, and there's a lot of icons to get used to here. And that is a bit of a barrier. Now, of course, on the back of the rulebook page, right where you'd want it, there's the explanation for almost all the icons. You got to go in a couple more pages to look at some card examples to explain what does this mean with an arrow at the victory point flag. Oh, it means I can exhaust those types of resources to get those points. So it's there. We got it very quickly. That's one of the barriers for any game with icons. So just know that's there. And my little wish that the names would have been printed on the actual little tiny ones, made a little bit bigger. Theme definitely comes through. The theme you feel like, and I was curious because if Liz, my wife, does not feel like she's progressing and engineering and having her administrative team working from command to get her crews to the moon, I knew it would miss. It hit on theme. We both liked the theme. We both felt like we were way behind, because your first card you just got like air superiority or I can't even remember, baseline communications, and so and they're fairly easy to achieve, but you have nothing built up yet, so of course it should be. And then as you're going through the green cards with the star on it, forget their name off the top of my head, they get progressively harder, but also more rewarding as you go. So you're building, and that engine is that card deck. Perfectly done, felt thematic. The way you're laying them in is T-2, T-1, and then they slide, and now you got something in launch, and you may have severals. The hazards were real cool. Liz, my wife, is not a big fan of take that kind of games, but you have the ability to put that on somebody or for you to blindly take it for yourself. And she saw me use those hazard cards for a huge bonus late in the game. I couldn't catch her, but I used it. She was like, oh. So you're picking up bonuses by surviving the hazard, and then later you're able to grab the card if you get lucky and you got the right guys and your workers. You can then profit from it victory point wise. So all that, the theme worked well with the victory points moving forward. The board seemed, it's attractive, but it felt segmented for me. And this is one of those games where we found it very valuable to both be sitting next to each other, which I don't mind. I play a lot of board games where you're sitting across, and that's fine. I don't mind, especially when I'm playing with my spouse or even a buddy. If they're sitting right next to me, I've got enough table space. But you've got that board in the upper left-hand corner where Earth is where all the symbols are that you need to understand, and then, okay, which one? And I'm putting my engineers are always on the top, the administrators are always on the bottom. What am I getting? What's the bonus? What if I do the satellite thing and that's removed? So you spend a lot of time in that upper left-hand corner, and it can be a bit hard to see and access. And I don't know, I mean, it's the main thing going on. I kind of felt like I wish it would have been a little bit bigger, but I know you want that theme of traveling to the moon and circulating around, and a lot of board space was used on that. I'm no art designer, graphic designer. I'm just saying that a lot of the action was there, but it's only a quarter of the board. Take that for what you got, because you got the cards going on here, but some of the cards are just placekeepers. Along with the media track. The media track's at the top. I get it, but now I'm reaching to the top a lot. And I usually managed all the media movement because I've got longer arms and I could just reach up and move them around and stack them. Other than that, the art's great. The card art, the real photos that are involved, I'm always a big fan of that when it's a true historical event. I thought the actions that the cards took for you, whether it was a crew member or whether it was a, I forget what they call them, discoveries or something. I thought all of the theme fit in really, really well with the history. So when history and theme link up and the card feels like, John Glenn is getting you some better media attention. He was like a media darling. So he's going to boost you up in that area. And the fact that the card allows you as one of the things to do is that, because clearly they ran the astronauts out to bolster what they were doing. And it comes across in the game. So that was perfect. So functioning worker placement style, yes. The fact that you only really have 4, 2 engineers, 2 administrators, sometimes felt, I'm used to the mechanic of building up more workers. That's not what this game is, although you're kind of able to use your personnel to do a little bit of that in the game. And then there's the action where if you take something I like, there's the ubiquitous, I think I got it right, action that it's going to cost you a little bit more if you got an engineer, but you can get in there and still do what someone else has already done. So that's handled, everything's good. The thing that was a little odd for me, I'm used to everybody places their workers wherever they go, and then once they're all placed, you go in and now as you're removing them, is how I do it, you trigger the effect. The rules are very specific. They say you put your piece on and you do the effect then. And so you're piecing and getting and piecing and getting and piecing and getting. I really like putting them on and puzzling what I'm going to get and then triggering them when I pull them off. So the first game, we did it kind of the way I think of worker placements. The second game, we did it the way the rules stated. Some of the kind of tweaky things are that if you get a resource and then you have the option to maybe up the resource to a permanent, you can't do that with a resource you just got. So you got to keep that in your mind that, hey, I had one booster, but I just got another booster, but I used the roll over here to take 2 temporary boosters and make them into 1 permanent booster, but you can't do that if you just got it. And I was like, that's hard to keep track of. So I haven't played enough to come up with any house rule, but I almost like the idea that all of the men or the workers go out, and then when we're cleaning them up is when you get all your goods, because you can't boost up anyway. But then I saw there was a couple occasions where you might have wanted that thing to happen before you did that thing. And that's got to be why they're doing that. And I can't remember where exactly that was, but I remember noticing, okay, that's why when we play the game for the second time, we're going to follow that rule where you put it on and you take the action immediately. Because the order of that mattered. Whereas when you're just taking your guys off at the end and grabbing the action, the order doesn't much matter. It's just that you secured the thing. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, I really enjoyed the game. I can be a little hard on worker placement games because it's my favorite. Pillars of the Earth is my favorite worker placement game. And for me, I like a ton of theme with my worker placement, and I got it here. So that's, for me going in, that's what I was looking for. And the only fear I had was that the icons or the symbols were going to not make things clear for my wife while we were playing. No problem at all. So it all worked perfectly well. The theme held up with the worker placement. But you can choose for yourself. It's kind of like a whiskey. I may like it, you may not. You may like a different kind. I may not like that kind. All right, game it, gamer gods. Feed the niche. A new catchphrase, feed the niche.